welcome. You are all on mute. If you do have any questions during the session, I would ask you to please type them into the chat window and I'll be monitoring that. And then at the end of the presentation from Ryan, we will open the lines for questions, or I'll ask questions out of the chat as necessary, depending on how noisy the lines are or how many questions that we get. But with that, what I'd like to do is turn it over to Ryan. He's going to be our speaker tonight. This project is being led by Natal Patel from Intel, though he is on sabbatical until early August. So Ryan is going to be talking about the project. He is Intel's, I'll say, standards guru for SEMI, and this project is going to work very closely with SEMI standards and collaboration, which he will talk to you about in just a second. So thanks much, Ryan. Just let me know when you want to advance slides, and I will turn it over to you.
Thank you. So, as Mark said, I'm Ryan Bond. I'm from Intel. I'm running this for Natal Patel while he's on sabbatical, but we'll go ahead and give you an overview of what we're looking at doing here. So, we're calling this Unified Equipment Interaction Management, and the reason we're coming to this is, as of now, typically in our implementations, an operator will interact with the tools. They'll clear alarms, they'll provide assist, but they'll utilize a login credential that's shared across multiple operators. As a result, it's very hard to manage who has access, what they're doing on the tool, and who's clearing alarms on the equipment, and so forth. So really looking at being able to log who is clearing those alarms, interacting with the user interface, and what actions they might be doing during production, and utilizing this data in order to detect some gaps in training, any types of malicious activities, and making sure that our recovery checklists are being completed properly, and look for commonalities just so we can improve overall equipment recovery time. Additionally, we'd like to be able to incrementally adjust access to these tools to the right levels based upon user training, user certification, etc. And so we've come up with a proposal here that we're discussing to develop a solution to centralize access management from the equipment interfaces of the tool to an enterprise credential management system to manage access rights. And we'll have the equipment report out any and all changes made by the user after they're logged in on the factory host or in equipment logs that can be retrieved later. At this time, there are no SEMI standards that cover this in depth. So we're proposing this pilot to inform a standard that's under development and provide us with feedback on whether the requirements that we're proposing are feasible and practical and so forth. And so the net outcome of this would be the inclusion of that feedback into the aforementioned SEMI standard. The benefits of having a SEMI standard in this regard is that it allows us to it prevents us from having to develop custom solutions for every single implementation that's utilized across our various tool fleets and so forth. Any questions on this slide?
I do not see any in the chat window. I'd say if you do have a question, you can also use the raised hand function and I can unmute you.
Okay.
Otherwise, I would just say let's continue.
Sounds good. Let's go to the next slide. So just the contributors so far for this, we've had Natal and myself from Intel. We've also had participation by Critical Manufacturing, K&S, Co-Young, Bessie, Applied Materials, and PDF. And we are looking for additional participants to engage in this project. So this is a kind of an authorization, real high level communication flow that we're looking at. It's very similar or typical to what we see on on a authentication authorization setup. Basically, user accessing requests and then getting their user credentials, and then provisioning of the configuration and authorization from there. Where after everything's said and done, we're looking at having this capability as well as probably maintaining some type of local level access or management that we can utilize as a last resort. Next slide. And so we talk about factory network, and this is a diagram of a said system. You have a factory host, or station controller, or some other type of control layer, communicating with your tools directly, your equipment directly, and then that is going up to the factory systems. And so this would, which is all behind a manufacturing firewall. This solution we're looking at would be probably residing within the factory itself, or some type of managed by some type of network firewall rules, or managed in some way so that it would centrally locate the authorization and provisioning requests from each tool. So changes to access and passwords and so forth will not have to be done on at a local level on each tool each time a change occurred. Next slide. So this project will be a collaboration between device manufacturers and equipment suppliers to validate the feasibility and ease of implementation of forthcoming SEMI standards that are being worked on as part of the SEMI North America Fab and Equipment Computer and Device Security Task Force, of which myself and Richard Howard from Symmetrics are the co-leaders. The major goals of this project would be to demonstrate the implementation or the ease of the implementation of the standards being proposed, and provide the results of that validation to the SEMI task force for inclusion, and to inform the decisions of that task force. Looks like we might have a question coming up.
I don't see that
I
yet.
just see Dan typing, so
Oh, it's Dan typing at us. Okay. Yeah, he's. I assume this can be used for OSAT and PCBA equipment, is what he's asking.
We're looking at this to be inclusive of front end, back end, OSAT, and PCBA. I don't see any. At the end of the day, it's an equipment with an operating system on it, and it's a computer with an operating system on it. And we're looking to leverage that.
Dan is still typing away, but why don't you continue, and we'll
Okay.
pull in his next
So
comment.
the purpose of this is to allow the participant companies to validate the implementation of the standard, which is currently listed as SEMI ballot 6926, which is being proposed by the SEMI task force. Based on these findings from the implementation, we'd be taking that feedback back to the standards proposal body and update that to ensure that the practicality and the viability gets informed before the standards final draft is submitted. The proposed standard is supposed to fill the role of last mile of data collection in the factory, where data can be leveraged for analytics tied to around efficiency of response flow checklists and training to improve mean time between interruptions. In addition, by enforcing user roles, manufacturers can ensure only qualified personnel are able to access the tool interfaces, and we can guarantee that they stay up to date with their training needs. Just to speak to Dan's comment about in the inclusion of that statement in the overview, as Mark said, if it's not included, we'll be sure to, I think, update this. It makes a good point.
Correct. I think later on we do talk about the equipment and what it needs to be in terms of newer equipment and the OS and some of the other support, and maybe that will address some of his question. But if not, we can certainly make it clear in there.
Go to the next slide.
Yes, sir.
So when
Can
we
you
state
see that?
Yep, when we state that will be a proof of concept, there's a couple assumptions we're making. We're assuming that the participating companies will form a concept validation of the proposal within the standard, and we're certain that there are different methods of implementations that are likely to exist. One boundary condition we're placing on it at this time is that there are semi-standards stating discouraging the delivery of equipment with an end of service or end of life operating system on it. So in that regard, we've limited this proof of concept to systems that are currently supported by the respective OS manufacturers. And solutions for legacy OS and equipment may be an item for future investigation. And it also might be bounded by the functionality and practicality of certain equipment. For example, if SSL is needed, you'd obviously need to have Windows and Linux to support that. So the active engagement with the SEMI working group as we analyze this, the draft standard, and ultimately we'd issue a white paper on successful means of implementing this standard. Go to the next slide.
Yeah, I think
Oh,
Dan is also trying to make a point around the name SEMI. So what does SEMI stand for? Because it's not semiconductor.
SEMI, as he says, is Semiconductor Equipment Manufacturing Institute. That being said, there are groups within SEMI that deal with, I think, as I've said, it's semiconductor, photovoltaic, high bay LED, and what is it? A PC board. I'm not sure if PC board is explicitly out there, but we have several. We have engagement from several PC board in various groups within SEMI, and I can understand the confusion in that regard. I can say that, as a semiconductor company, Intel does utilize several PC board systems and manufacturing equipment in their work and in their research. So I would hope that those lines are not as are siloed as you might fear.
No, that's a good point. Just note it, maybe it has semiconductor in the name, but this is a standard that is meant for use across industries, not just the semiconductor industry.
So it is not on this. This is a validation and feedback based on the implementation proposed by proposed SEMI standards. This is not an independent standards activity. I believe iNEMI is not a standards organization, so therefore will not be issuing a standard. This is for equipment and software that is supported by OS vendors, and this is not for equipment that is no longer supported by those same vendors. So, at the end of the day, we're not expecting an implementation to work on to be done on a Windows XP machine, no matter how many of those we still have running around.
Correct.
Yep. So we believe we can see several benefits to the industry based on the potential of this proof of concept, such as ensuring that people accessing specific functions on the interface have the correct role to do so, modifying the access and so forth for individuals when their job assignments change, auditing the access on the equipment and what levels, enforcing training requirements, including the periodic refresh of courses and so forth needed, complying to and monitoring of resource flow checklists and their effectiveness, identifying opportunities to improve operator training, Reducing mean time between assists or alarms due to better management of operator training and the effectiveness of the checklists. Providing an audit trail on what updates have been made to the equipment and being able to reconcile those with any downstream findings. And it would give equipment suppliers the ability to identify some, any type of technical debt or features that are not being utilized by their users through this mechanism. Go to the next slide. So the outcome we're looking at over about 15 months of this is to ensure that the participants from multiple companies have had an opportunity to do a mock-up or a proof of concept of these standard proposals to tie equipment access to enterprise level authentication, as well as logging user interactions in a well-defined format and available for remote retrieval. Specifically, the participants should identify any issues or gap they find in the implementation and the integration with enterprise solutions. Any gaps identified or issues will be fed back to the SEMI task force that is in a timely fashion, and we will do the best to get those updates into the standard or addressed in some manner. So the key milestones we're looking at would be the feedback and documentation of any issues or concerns. We're looking at targeting at least 2 validation cycles within the SEMI organization. And we'll keep a placeholder for a third. And these are typical. These coincide with the three yearly SEMI standards meetings that occur in both Semicon West and at the SEMI headquarters in Milpitas. At the end of the day, we'll be sharing project results. We'll share this with SEMI and have a public white paper and presentation about the implementation available. Next slide. Thank you. So we're looking at kicking off in August. In phase 1, analyzing the SEMI standards results that requirements, the first Rev 0 draft, implementing those through the end of the year and providing feedback in December on findings. Through January, we'll reformat and submit this to the task force and the Information Controls Committee that the task force reports to, and allow SEMI members to provide their feedback. We'll get all of that correlated over the course, and then in about April, when the meeting occurs, we'll have the final round of feedback completed. At which point, we hope to have another set of requirements and go through a second iteration of this, which would last through September of next year. And then we would issue feedback in time for the winter meeting and submit for another cycle. If everything goes well, we might end it here and have the white paper and wrap up at that time. If we decide we want to go for a third implementation cycle, we have that option. Go to the next slide.
That takes it back to me.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we had 2 call for participation webinars, one earlier today and then the one right now. The way this works is we start the clock for folks to be able to sign up for this project today. And we will have the open sign up through approximately August 12th, so around not quite 6 weeks, 5 to 6 week sign up period. And then the plan is to kick off the project the week of August 15th. And the duration, as we mentioned on the previous slide, should be about 15 months. We'll start in August with the idea of presenting our findings in the December timeframe of next year. Again, as Ryan has said, if we wish to do a third cycle of testing, that may extend this a little bit more, but we will have to see once we get into the actual implementation and the things that we're finding, if there are open items that we want to continue to address, then we have that potential option to do so, and so that could extend a little bit longer than the 15 months. And the way it works to join, the statement of work, which is a much more detailed version of the set of slides that you've seen here, goes into a lot more detail of what we're going to be doing, how the tasks are going to work, how this benefits industry, things like that. That can be found on our project webpage. And then also the project statement is there. The project statement is what would need to be filled out and returned to iNEMI to indicate your willingness to be part of that project. The project statement also outlines sort of how long we think or how much time each month you would need to be able to commit. And in this particular case, if there was any additional cost, all of that would also be outlined in the project statement. There is no anticipated additional cost to be part of this this activity other than your time and obviously the cost of the membership for iNEMI. You do need to be an iNEMI member to be part of the project. So if you are, it's easy. Fill out the project statement and return it to me. If you're not, but you want to be in the project, you can become an iNEMI member, and the first step to that would also just be to reach out to me, or if you are, Hallie is on the line here, or Grace or Shekar or other employees of iNEMI that can help you with that, but you can start with me and I can point you to the right folks regarding membership options if needed. So with that, that is the end of our slides. I will ask if there's any, let me actually, first of all, I will take this website information here and I will put this into the chat window so it's easy for those of you who are here. If you wish to go and look at that in some more detail, you can go into the chat window and just click on it. But I will ask Ryan if there's any last words that you have, and if anybody does have any additional questions, I'd say please use the raised hand function and we'll unmute you so that you can ask your questions.
I just want to say thanks for letting me opportunity to come here and speak with all of you, and I hope see your participation, and happy to answer any questions you may have.
Hi, Dan. Let me unmute you or allow the mic, and then you should be able to unmute yourself and ask your question. Go ahead, Dan.
Hi, Brian. Thank you for the presentation. It's not a question, it's more of a comment, because you answered my question concerning the ability to use this guideline or standard or protocol later for, beyond SEMI, front end, back end, as well as PCBA. So that's good to know. It's just a comment that, unfortunately, we've been trying to generate greater adoption of SexGen, and what happens is that we're finding, that there are certain people that basically associate anything to do with the semiconductor world as being more expensive. And so my only statement is it's very important to make sure that you try to refrain from the use of SEMI, and yes, SEMI is the organization, but really just people in their head for some reason, they have a very difficult time processing anything beyond the word of SEMI. I mean, once you say SEMI, they assume semiconductor and they assume expensive. And even though this will be, I am sure, very valuable, some people just turn their ears off. And so that's my only comment.
Well, that's well taken. I think I've experienced similar in some of my engagements with Intel and other suppliers, so I can I'll definitely take that to heart.
Okay, and I'm a firm believer in standards and protocols that work, especially some of the ones that are coming out or have been developed and evolved under SEMI. So I'm a big proponent It's just, I don't want to see some work like this have a lot of headwind just because people are not listening beyond that word. So, but otherwise, no, I thought the presentation was very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. Let's see, there is a question in the chat from Jack. Will this log user interaction standard include equipment foolproof requirement in this system?
Can you give me some more?
I can,
Context
yeah, let me, Jack, I'm gonna allow your mic so you can ask your question if that's okay. You'll just need to unmute yourself.
Yeah, okay, yeah, thank you. This is a good system. I think you can monitoring the operator into the system, what they are doing. I think this is according to the introduction on this project, going to assess the requirement training for operator. So in this standard, probably are we going to adding some foolproof, for example, different hierarchy of operator? What kind of action they can do if they do something wrong? The system will automatically alarm or putting on the system to the management or supervisor. That kind of requirement are we also consider in this project?
I think we're at a stage where while we haven't considered it, we could definitely bring that up to the task force. We've had some discussions on like failed login attempts and so forth, but the actual identification of malicious behavior and what consequences to take has not been discussed as of yet.
Okay, thank you, Ryan. I think this is a good project. I think in the future, probably this project will make it more, comprehensive, to benefit for the operation process. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Hallie, do you have anything you'd like to add? I'll give you your mic so you can unmute yourself if you'd like to add anything.
Yeah, I think it's a good project. The communication with different equipment suppliers and get people involved. It's important so that make sure. I think I agree with Dan's comment so people get involved and enough communication, and it will be helpful for the future acceptance and agree with what the output from the project. Yeah, I think that if anything, because I'm based in Asia, certainly I would be able to help out to either broadcast this project and invite people. Let me know. Okay.
Absolutely. Oh yeah, absolutely. Okay. Any other comments before I let you guys have the rest of your day back? Okay. So I see no additional questions or hands raised. So I would say if you do have some after the call, feel free to email me, mark.s@inemi.org, and I will answer as quickly as I can. Or if it's a question I can't answer, I'll pass it to Ryan and get him to reply. But otherwise, Ryan, thank you for presenting tonight, and thanks all of you for your attention, and I hope that you will consider joining the project. So thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Everybody take care. Take care. Bye-bye.